This woman shut down her $700,000 Y Combinator company and is now a startup evangelist at a $1.3 billion startup. And she's even turned her biggest failure into a very successful career. Today, we learn exactly how she did it. I'm Mabel, and this is Prototyped. Hello and welcome to the Prototype podcast. Today I am joined with Gillian O'Brien and I'm really excited to be speaking with her because she's been doing amazing work. Hi Gillian, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. So I'm going to kick things right off and deep dive in the first question. So when I was scouring the internet to learn more about you, I noticed that you had a 5-part series on Medium with your sister about Cherry, the company that you founded, and the story was really intriguing because I felt like it was a whole, in a sense, a movie, a whole narrative. Like you really brought me on the whole story about why you had to shut down Cherry, why you started in the first place. But what was really interesting that I found was the fact that you started at Y Combinator at the startup school. And I was wondering, was this a conscious choice in the beginning of your startup journey?
It definitely was. We knew that going through, so startup school is Y Combinator's MOOC. I don't know it's like massive open online course, I think is what it stands for, but anyone can go through it. There's not a application or like acceptance process necessarily. There was at the time a way that you could get a mentor at startup school and you would apply for that like aspect of it. And we did get that. So we had an alumni who was a mentor for us during startup school. And I think we really just wanted to show, the YC admissions team and, whoever else we could, the community at YC, that we were really serious about, building our company. And we were thinking about it and we were working with, our advisor. So it was a conscious choice. And the information that they share in startup school is really valuable. A lot of YC's like most compelling advice, I think, is just like free online. So that's nice.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I did my previous video. I actually spoke about YC and how that actually got me into entrepreneurship. So it's cool that that's how you
Yeah,
started as well. And in terms of
cool.
like YC and the whole process, I know you were part of the Winter 2019 cohort, if I'm correct. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, how was it on that first day where you had to pitch Cherry to over like so many investors? Like how did you feel, and if you can walk through the whole process with the days leading up to that?
Yeah. So demo day, which is like the end of the 3 month journey that you take with YC, is what's sort of all leading up to. You spend these 3 months in the program preparing to pitch to these thousands of investors. And because we were in the Winter 19 batch, we were one of the last batches in person. So we were, literally speaking to a huge crowd of people. It was extremely nerve wracking, I think, for a lot of reasons. We wrote about this in our series, so but we were first time founders, we were sisters, so we had, I think, a bit of a hard time getting people to, I think, just really take us seriously. And we ourselves felt very out of place, just kind of feeling like we're these two girls among all of these like really technical like men mostly. And so, it was a bit intimidating getting up on the stage and sort of pouring my heart out of what it felt like to all of these people. But I also knew, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. People all over the world would wish that they would have this experience for their business. And so I tried to also just kind of, be excited about the fact that I was getting to do that. And I still think, hey, that was a really cool accomplishment of mine. I think of it fondly.
Yeah, I think you started Cherry when you were 22 or 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that
Yeah.
must have been really intimidating because like I can't even comprehend doing all of that, and especially because you and your sister went really far with it. And one thing that isn't really online, what I've noticed, is no one really talks about life after Y Combinator and if you have to
Yeah.
shut down your startup. So it'd be great to tell the listeners and watchers like what actually is life after being a startup within the Y Combinator cohort?
There's kind of like two elements to that. There's like, what is just life after YC as a founder? And then like the what is
Mhm.
life after you shut down your company. So I think a lot of founders do struggle with the months that follow YC because you're sort of in this environment where you have a consistent community, you have accountability, you have these partners who really are invested and care about your business. And there's a lot of structure and kind of these built-in timelines, so people find that really helpful. And then after demo day, you're just totally on your own, which is how it is when you're running a business. But that kind of sense of like loneliness and uh, just uncertainty on, am I doing the right things, and now I have to really figure all of this out by myself. It can just be very overwhelming for people. So I know that, yeah, a lot of founders struggle with this and have tried to create different ways like to solve this over the years. I think there are some mini communities within YC that try to kind of keep up the schedule. And, founders really need other founders to just help them, like, avoid all of that sense of loneliness that kind of comes with running a business. So there are a lot of communities that people will go to. But so, yeah, I would say life after YC is a bit overwhelming, and, it's kind of a little bit clumsy, kind of getting your footing. And then in terms of
Mm.
like life after shutting down your company, um, I think this is like a whole other topic I have a lot to say on, but um, many people will, kind of keep their business running for a very long time, sort of past its expiration date, just for that fear of moving away from their founder identity, or like admitting that it didn't work out. And I think that the nice thing for me is that I have seen, like, there is life, there is very, positive experiences and growth that can happen if you just kind of take that leap. And, you can always start another business. So for me, life after being a founder has been really great. Not to say that the decision to shut down wasn't really hard, but, the opportunities that have come since then have been, better than I could have imagined.
Yeah, and I think that's why I find your story so interesting, because you kind of use that quote unquote failure to be successful in where you are now. And you are kind of still doing what you were doing at Cherry
Yeah.
anyway. And I think that that pivot is so important. And I think that people need to start redefining what failure is, and that's the whole point of this podcast, is just to encourage people to just try something like you and your sister did. Like, it was a big leap, but I think both you and your sister have reaped the great rewards from everything you learned from building a company and now.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, honestly, I applaud you in like what you're doing now, especially your pilot.
Yeah. Thanks.
Now I'm just gonna kind of switch things up a bit and speak more on I want to say like a different level. Like, I think people really focus when they're building a startup, they really just focus on like the business side and never really focus on like the
Mm.
passion, the love, what you want to do. So when I was looking through your website, I noticed that you have loads of reading recommendations. Some books I have read, other books I haven't. One of the books I did read was the Ikigai book, and I've like once I think Ikigai has been a new thing, but more and more people are talking about it. So I'm just wondering, like, how has your Ikigai changed? What is it now? What was it before? And like, how do you feel about that, basically?
Yeah. I love reading and learning about these new concepts, which is like what you love and like what the world needs, and then what you can be paid for. And I do like that framing of it, because something that is kind of harder for me is figuring out, like, yeah, what do I title like what I'm doing? So like, I feel like, oh, this isn't just like business development, but it's not quite sales, not quite marketing. And so, like, on my resume, I have a lot of these kind of like open ended generalist roles, like, founder, chief of staff, founder in residence, where, yeah, I'm doing a bunch of different stuff, and I don't want to kind of silo it into like product manager or whatever. I like the concept of Ikigai because it is so nebulous in a way, but say
Mm,
that like the things that were true for me at the time and like still true about what I'm passionate about and what I feel like other people kind of recognize in me is I just really love communicating in any way. I love, I'm very verbal. Like I love speaking to people. I love helping other people communicate their ideas. I love writing. I love like figuring out how to message things like sales messaging or marketing messaging, anything that like
Mhm.
tells a story or is kind of there to create like a feeling or a reaction in the person listening. I just love, yeah, anything to do with communications really. So that's a lot of where my passion comes from. And then I do have like a very real kind of like curiosity for just business and like how industries work and how economics work and like how people can make money and provide like value to customers. So I would say that that's kind of like a secondary thing that uh, like the startup community and the kind of business community at large will always be so interesting to me just because um yeah, I have so much curiosity for just how all of those things work.
That really resonates with me as well because like it's I think it goes beyond what curiosity is. It's like something in your brain that's telling you like this is so exciting,
Hmm.
this is like innovative, and you're going to do something great. So I'm totally aligned with that. And just moving on from that, it'll be really interesting to talk about what you're doing now at
Yeah.
pilot.com. So it'd be great if you could explain what pilot.com is and also talk about how pilot.com is really making an impact.
In terms of what Pilot is and what Pilot does, so Pilot is it's the largest bookkeeping firm actually in the United States, which is pretty cool considering it's still a startup, and the company has been around for like 6 or 7 years. Um, so basically, what Pilot does is bookkeeping, accounting, tax, and CFO services for mostly startups, but also small businesses, e-commerce, like consumer goods and retail. But yeah, we really help like founders and business owners just kind of keep their books in order, get a sense of their finances, and avoid issues with the IRS basically by taking that off of their hands. I don't think anyone is really super jazzed about doing their accounting when they go to start a business. So that's what Pilot
Mhm.
does, and I think the way that we make an impact is, yeah, I mean, just really enabling entrepreneurs to focus on the things that they are uniquely good at and the, special kind of insights that they've stumbled upon. When you are a founder, especially, pre-product market fit, you're really trying to figure out your business and how to make it scale. 100% of your time needs to go into that, and so it's just not a good use of time, not a great way to have your kind of brain in like this context switching if you're thinking, oh yeah, I need to file my taxes and like, actually like what were my expenses last month? It's just yeah, not something that you want to have to be doing alone. So yeah, that's what Pilot does for our customers. And what I do at Pilot is really just kind of focus on that tech startup community in particular, and helping the founders who, basically where I was in their position, not too long ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. And do you think that kind of helps? I also know that you are a venture partner at the Orange Collective, and I'm just wondering how is also working as a venture partner, working as a startup evangelist at Pipe.com. How does all of these things come together to make what you're doing so great and the impact you're making to founders' lives and obviously the collective, the world as well?
Yeah, I feel very lucky that these things sort of like all feed into each other and they like all fell into place. But basically, what I started out doing at Pilot was my original title was founder in residence. So basically, the concept here was like, hey, Jillian, you've been a founder before. You maybe want to be a founder again. Come be like the resident founder who understands that community, who will talk to that community, who will answer their questions and help them, get on board and, be their advocate here. And so I kind of came into Pilot just really focusing on that early stage founder community, doing everything from, putting on events and doing special like offerings and content to sitting with them on the sales calls to like, helping them when they are customers and they have questions. Um, And I think basically after some time doing that, I started learning about like the world of evangelism, like within companies. So like developer evangelism and being like a founder advocate. And I got really excited about that and said like, let's change my title to Startup Evangelism. But basically, I kind of just realized like I'm talking to hundreds of founders every day. I'm always learning about like the newest companies that just got into IC or that are, just launched and they're looking for funding. And like I have this amazing perspective that a lot of like investors or venture capitalists would want, where they have access to and are meeting all of these talented founders. And I was able to connect a lot of dots for founders through like, here, if you need a vendor, here's this. If you need to hire someone, here's that. But I didn't necessarily like I couldn't just invest like my own, I can't invest like personally like millions of dollars into all these different companies. And so it made sense for me to start asking, where can I be a venture scout, or where can I like collaborate and kind of pool like the funds that I have with some other people so that we can collectively, help these founders by investing in them. And so that's kind of how I ended up, kind of carving out a little wedge for myself in the investor space. And yeah, it's really helpful. I think they both feed into each other. So when I'm working at Pilot and interacting with founders, if they need funding or if they're in the middle of a round, I can connect them. And then vice versa, if I'm meeting a founder as an investor, and they need like finance or bookkeeping help, I can refer them to Pilot. So yeah, there's just a really nice overlapping interest there that works really well.
Yeah, that's nice. And how do you think being an ex-founder at Cherry has helped you have more empathy when you speak to other founders of startups?
Yeah, it's really it's crazy how I think because of how intense that experience was, how fresh it is in my mind. So it's interesting, like when I am working with, because there are a lot of companies that target founders or that want founders as customers, and you can really feel the difference when you're talking to someone who has not run a business and has not like attempted to do that. The things that they think are going to resonate, or the things that they think that founders care about, are not necessarily like the right things to do. Or there's even just sort of like very specific, little kind of like insider information that you have about, oh, there's like kind of just like a secret language or like a secret understanding among founders that like, if I get an email that says XYZ, I'm immediately sending it to spam. There's just kind of this sense that you get of the community. I think it's like any community, right? Like if you're really deep in like the Reddit, like subreddits, or like you're part of a fandom or something, there's like, little inside jokes or memes, or just like ways that you communicate with each other. And so I think that just from being in the founder community for that long, and obviously having gone through it myself, a lot of those things stayed with me. And so I'm very conscious of, if we are going to be putting on an event or communicating with a founder or talking to them in a sales process, like how can we be really thoughtful that like we're saying the right things and that we're not actually just like, pushing them away with being really salesy or, falling into the traps that like every other company falls into. So, yeah, I rely on that heavily in my role today.
Do you wish you had yourself now, if you could go back to the past and speak to yourself at the start of your journey? Do you wish that you had yourself basically?
Yeah, I do. I think especially like that first year was just so emotionally like taxing because the imposter syndrome was just so hard. You mentioned like I was 23. I just felt like, such a joke because I just didn't know how to be like a young woman founder, and kind of dealing with like all the things that were happening. And so, yeah, it was really just hard to kind of, navigate and go through that process. And that took up so much mental energy for me that I wish I actually could have just spent, focusing on my business. Nowadays, like those sorts
Mm.
of things don't bother me at all. Um, but yes, I wish that I did have like a, friendly, approachable female mentor at the time that I could have gone to. But yeah, I think also I don't regret, all the lessons that were hard learned.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like things in life happen for a reason, and it's if it didn't happen, we wouldn't even be speaking
Yeah,
as
for
well.
sure.
Um, So now we're going to have a quick interlude. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to call this
Yeah,
game, so I'm just calling it the
nice.
game. So basically, the game basically entails I'll show you two pictures and I'll show you a caption. I'd like you to guess what caption matches with what picture, and obviously tell the listeners and the watchers context of the story behind those pictures.
Okay.
So I hope you're
I'm
ready.
ready.
So I'm just going to edit it right
Oh
now.
my goodness.
Yeah, can you see it? So the caption says, "Wow. So what is it like to start a company with your sister? How is it to work together? Us." Which one is which?
Oh my goodness. I think it's the cookie. Is it?
Yes. Ding, ding, ding.
It's so funny. This other
Why?
picture, I'm like, that's gotta be the same. Like, that's gotta be in that same apartment. No, or like, I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, but I think you had different caption. But I just thought it was funny. I was like, why do they keep breaking
That's so
things?
weird.
Could you tell us the story
Oh
behind
my
it,
god,
please?
that's so funny. Yeah, I love that. Like, I completely forgot about this moment, but I think, yeah, we working with your sister has its like pros and cons, and I think one of the pros is like we were just totally like unhinged around each other, and like we didn't have to censor ourselves at all, and we had like a similar sense of humor and everything, and so I think we would just have these moments of like total like helplessness or just being super burnt out or tired or whatever. And I think in that picture we must have like dropped a cookie on the floor or something and just looked at each other and we were like, this is this is our life. Like we barely have a bed set up, we barely have like a living situation in our apartment, and it's just covered in like cookie dust. So
Oh my
yeah.
god. I thought you guys were like fighting over the
Yeah,
cookie,
yeah,
to be
I
honest.
honestly don't. I don't know what was going on there, but I think we had so many moments where we were like, what are we living like? We just didn't like prioritize, living well or like eating well at all. It was just like, you know, eyes glued to the screen, trying to get this company going. But
Yeah.
that's, yeah, was the result.
It must have been scary though, because I think you did move to San Francisco as
Yeah.
well. So I think all of that like came together to just produce just breaking
Yeah.
everything.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So now I'm gonna go over to round two. So same thing. Could you guess which one's this one's a bit tough because I had to cut a large part of the text.
Yeah.
So yeah, it says exactly 1 year ago I quit my full-time job. Dot dot dot. Which picture matches up with
I,
which? You're standing and speaking in both of
yes.
them, so it's kind of tricky.
I think it's the one on the left where I'm at the front office.
Yes, that is. So, what were you speaking about, and what were you doing there,
Yeah,
basically?
so I was at this was one of our biggest customers, which was Front app, and Mathilde, who is the CEO there, was one of our investors, and so yeah, this was like a super exciting moment for us where yeah, they were a customer, so all of the people in that room who were listening to me were using our product. Um, yeah,
Oh
so I think
wow.
for me it was just like, whoa, this is so surreal and cool. And they let us kind of
Mhm.
come into their office to give a presentation about what our product was and like how they could further engage with it. And yeah, I mean, I had gone from like being a recent grad who had this like social media manager job where uh yeah, no, like it was just very, very that job was like no one took me seriously in the slightest, and I don't blame them because I was a social media manager who had like just graduated. But going from that to like standing in front of all of these people and telling them about my product felt like so full circle and really exciting. So yeah, I think that that's why I ended up,
Mhm.
posting that picture with that caption.
Yeah, and the other picture was that at the YC Investor Day talk.
Yes. Yeah, that was at demo day. And yeah, I feel like you can see that I'm like, a little bit nervous. But yeah, we are
Mm.
just kind of talking about what our product was and what we do and customized perks for employees. Yeah.
And looking back, do you think that pitch was like the best pitch you could have ever done, and you feel like you sold to
I
everyone?
mean, I think it was the best we could have done for what we were doing. So, like, one of the big learnings, which we talked about in our blog, was sort of like, hey, actually, like, this was not a great market to like choose. And like, I think if I was going to start a company again, I would not be interested in doing anything that was like HR related. It's like
Mm.
oftentimes because it's not necessarily like a burning need or like a priority for a company. HR things are usually like
Mm.
secondary. And so in markets like this, sometimes those businesses just like can't survive. And so, yeah, I think we basically did the best pitch that we could for what we had built. But like, is it the best pitch I'll ever do? Hopefully not.
You'll do another one. Okay, so final few questions.
Yeah.
So I feel like your whole entire journey being an operator first, now you're being a startup evangelist and being an advisor, being a venture partner, being a VC scout. What is like the biggest lesson that you've learned from this whole array of experiences you've had?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big things that has stuck with me, that I think would be like encouraging to hear is, I really think that it's just about your relationships with people. So I don't think that you necessarily have to be like super academic or have, gotten a certain score on your like SAT or, graduated with honors. I think, in the business world, particularly, like the most important thing is, yeah, your relationships with people. Your relationships will end up translating into opportunities. Your relationships will be, potential employers or employees. They'll be customers, investors, just like friends you can commiserate with. So, um, really, I think for me, the pretty like stunning thing about the tech industry and why I love it, aside from the fact that it's like, feels very truly like a meritocracy, is that, I feel like the connections that I make are so engaging. Like I can start off having a conversation with someone about work and then, end up, really enjoying them as a friend, and, having all these other like ways that we end up collaborating together, or vice versa, have a friend who ends up, being someone that I want to hire, or vice versa. So like there's just all these interesting overlapping ways that your relationships can kind of take form. Um, and I think, if you're a social person, like that's a much more, I think, encouraging thing to hear than like, oh, you need to get certain grades or you need to go to a certain school. I was never really very like, I wasn't stellar in school, so uh, yeah, I think I would have been reassured to hear that when I was younger.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think startups and venture capital, the whole business world, it is like relationships basically, and I think that the more you learn how to cultivate like the skills of
Yeah,
communication, like you said, and how you're really good at that, and I think the skills that you've had, the skills that you learned from working on Cherry, and even in being a chief of staff, like all these skills have accumulated to you being able to speak so eloquently. Because I love the way you explain things, because you explain it so well,
yeah,
and um, I think yeah, it's just cool to hear that. Yeah, it's just relationships and communicating, which is like very key and integral.
yeah.
On that, I know that this has happened like it's quite a minute ago, but how do you feel now that you're no longer a first time founder and that you've kind of left that behind?
Yeah, so I think that there's always sort of a call to do that again. Um, Certainly, like there's an aspect of like being a founder that it becomes so ingrained in your identity and feels really special. And so I kind of mentioned before, like, people are really reluctant to let go of that identity.
Mm,
I think, certainly like sometimes even in my current work, being a former founder is really helpful. But yeah, the fact that I'm like, not working on my own thing will sometimes make me a little bit of an outsider, or I'll feel, that bit of FOMO. So I think that, that call is sort of always there. But interestingly, they also do say that being a first time founder has its advantages or is easier in a way because you just have no idea of all of the challenges. And so you kind of go into it, like you jump in and you're super excited, you have a ton of energy, and that really helps you in a way. Whereas
mhm,
I think now my like standards for, okay, here are the things that I would need in order to take that leap again,
mhm,
um, are way higher, in terms of like, here's who I would need as like, on my team. And here's the kind of like, market like signal that I would need, and like, the type of idea and whatever. I just didn't have that when I was, 23 and starting something. I was like, this is good enough. Like, let's just go. And we were able to get, pretty far, which is cool. So, um, yeah, being a second time founder, like being removed from the first time founder experience, I feel like if I were to take another go at it, um, I would be, a lot smarter and wiser. But, yeah, maybe it's going to take a little bit more to kind of push me to do that. Just knowing, what I know about the challenges of it.
yeah, and I'm glad you did say that. And also, like, you're working at pilot.com, and Pilot is like huge, and um I'm surprised that it's not as overwhelming as it was compared to Cherry. So yeah, yeah, it's just surprising to hear this. Um, so next question, just wondering, like, people every day are starting companies, like people are trying to make something, they're making brands, they're just trying to do something with their lives, and um, when you think about the increase in people making companies, that means it leads to more quote unquote failure. So,
Mhm.
based on that, do you think that there'll be, in a sense, in the maybe in the next few years, like a surge of ex founders, and you'll probably see on LinkedIn ex founder?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll see that, and how does the word ex founder actually make you feel? Because I think it's not a word that you hear common, and X kind of makes it scary, like, oh my gosh, you used to do
Mm.
that. So yeah, how
Yeah.
does that make you feel, and do you think that there'll be a surge in the next few years?
Yeah. When I first took this like founder in residence role, I think that I have like a friend who works at Forbes, and he did a little like, um, article about like what is this role. And I think that when we were talking, I was saying like, yeah, there's more people starting businesses than ever, so there's more people failing. And so the idea that like businesses who sell to founders would want, an ex-founder to come in and sort of be a founder in residence, like I am at Pilot, it seems pretty easy to understand like why that would end up happening. So yeah, I think that people, probably will probably see like a lot more of that, people who kind of uh had a go at like the founder life and then stepped away for whatever reason. And yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of like what they can do next and like where they can go with the role, is it's so just dependent on like them. So the learnings that they took from that experience, and the way that they kind of communicated, and what they think they can bring to like an organization if they feel like they learned special things. So yeah, I don't think anyone should be afraid of saying like ex founder. It's really just, being willing to talk about the experience and explain why, you think you failed, and like what you want to do now. Um, yeah.
Yeah, cool, cool. And now we're just gonna wrap things up now.
Cool.
So where can people find you? How can we be connected to you basically?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So I can send you a link to my LinkedIn, or you can just search me up, Gillian O'Brien. I do have a website, gillianroseobrien.com. And then my email is gillian.o'brien@pilot.com. So you can also reach me there.
Awesome. Okay. So that ends this episode of Prototypes. I hope you guys enjoyed this.